I'm Daniel Ong. I'm a Singaporean. I'm a policeman with the Singapore Police Force. So traditionally, I think in Singapore, people have come to think of startups as where you just break off from the pack and you just do your own thing. You don't have to answer to any bosses. You don't have to answer to anything. I don't know whether I'm a huge fan of that. I work in the Singapore government, and specifically in the police force. It's a big organization. We have 15,000 policemen, none of whom have ever heard of version control, of programming. It's very different. But what is a startup? It's where you take a vision, you organize a group of people together, and you get them to work towards that vision. So if you're talking about startup, I don't like the startups which are, just floating out, just do your own thing. I feel most of them are just very, not all of them, but many of them that are happening are usually because people don't want to work for other people. So they just create their own thing. I'm a huge fan of the idea that you go into places where not a lot of programmers are, not a lot of creative people are, and you try to use these ideas, to change how people think, point them in a very different vision, and try to lead them in that direction. I think that's incredibly powerful, and, I think Zed Shaw wrote this in Advice from an Old Programmer. It's the last thing in Learn Python the Hard Way. After you go through the whole Python course, here this one thing which is Advice from an Old Programmer. He says, people who know how to code in software are a dime a dozen. But people who know how to code, in industries, in biology, in government, in everywhere else, do incredibly to advance their field. That's what I like, It's about pushing progress, about these ideas in a very different place. It's not easy, it's very hard. So many days you come back, you're beaten down by the bureaucracy, you're beaten down by the red tape. And, you're so drained, but you just have this idea, that you want to change the way people think, and what if the police force could think like a startup, what if your policemen, had technology that didn't suck, and what if you could use all these ideas from, Facebook, all these other places and put them into a police force, How would we be able to make sure that we serve the public better? How do you make sure that your policemen are equipped better? How do you make sure that they make the right decision, and don't make mistakes which mess up people's lives? And that's, I couldn't think of a better way to use my programming skills than that. I think in Singapore that perspective is there. It was present in the very early generations who didn't have anything, and in order to achieve something they had to take very huge risks. I think for my generation that perspective got a little bit watered down. In Chinese they have the saying, the first generation makes the money, the second generation maintains it. And actually a funny story, the third generation does a startup. So we're very squarely in the second generation or third generation, where we are already given a lot, and it was very risky to say, hey, I don't want to climb your ladder, I'm going to go out and do my own thing. And that's always very scary. But I think the perspectives are always there. There's the internet. We grew up in the internet. We had all these stories of, internet people, Jeff Bezos, I read Jeff Bezos when I was 14. You had all these people who you could read books and you understand how they think. In Singapore, I think we've always tended to put on a pedestal the people who have succeeded via the ladder, but I think over time we've started to look at people who have succeeded more non-traditional routes. And I think that's very powerful. In Singapore, what we're always taught is that there are always ladders, that we are incentivized to climb. The higher you climb on the ladder, the better you are as a person, because the Singapore system is structured as a pyramid, You compete, you get to the next level, you compete, you get to the next level. The Bay Area's mentality is very different, They don't see it as a ladder, they see it as you try, you have a vision, you try it for yourself, and if you get there, you win, And they have very different notions of failure. Sometimes we are scared to fail. There's so many things that, if you're a scholar, if you climb up the banking ladder, and if you drop off, you didn't make it, you're a failure. And sometimes we're very scared to lose what we have on this ladder, to chase something that, is your own vision, your own idea of how the world should be. And it's so scary, you know, because everybody is on that ladder. They're climbing. And if you say, okay, you know, I'm going to let off this ladder and chase something that I want, they're going to continue climbing, you know. And you're just going to be, there's always this fear that, you know, if I did my own thing, you know, I'm looking at all these people who have made it up that ladder, and where am I, you know? What I see in the Bay Area is completely different, you know. They don't have this fear, you know. They have this own narrative that they want for their lives. And they have these problems these convictions that they want to solve. And they just go for it. It's incredible. And if they fail, they don't see it as a failure. The society around them just is more welcoming of it. And they're willing to say, you know, you tried, but hey, you're still really good at what you do. And maybe if you tried again, you'll get there. And that's so powerful.